What is going on, guys and gals? Brooklyn Bound the Raid Scientist here with another Destiny 2 video. Today, we're going to discuss strategies, tips, mods, loadouts, and everything else for getting a solo completion of the Prophecy Dungeon, and it'll also apply for going for that solo flawless as well. As a note, the channel is growing really fast, and I'm now on Twitter and Twitch, so please drop me a follow if you want to get more updates regarding what's going on around the channel. Okay, let's jump right into it. There are a lot of variables when it comes to soloing endgame content, but Bungie has even said in their coverage of the Prophecy, as well as other dungeons, that they actually design the difficulty around a single player attempting the encounters, and then adjust so that it isn't too trivial for a team of 3. So with that said, once you've mastered the mechanics of this dungeon, give it a try. You might actually surprise yourself in what you can do. Ultimately, if you're watching this video, you're probably completed the dungeon multiple times and are just looking for some strategies, tips, and loadouts that will provide the most success when doing it solo. I'm going to break this guide down into a subclass and class selection discussion, mod selections, weapon loadouts, and then finally the encounter strategies. Note that I do not recommend attempting soloing the dungeon in any fashion until you are at least 1065 light, as enemies in the final encounter are 1060, and you do want to maximize your damage towards all enemies as well as minimize your incoming damage, and at lower levels this will become much harder to do. So, after toying with each class, talking with the community, and even practicing a little on each myself, I've come to the conclusion that I personally feel doing this on a hunter is the easiest, with Warlock being very close. In my opinion, Titan is probably the hardest. Sorry, Punchy Boys, but the inability to self-heal or evade really ups the difficulty here. Now, there are many Titan mains that can probably make easy work of this, but I'd highly recommend that if you aren't set on a class yet, that you pick either a Hunter or a Warlock. If you're running Hunter, you are going to want to run either Top Tree or Bottom Tree Void. If running Top Tree, which will give you invisibility when you dodge, you're going to want to maximize your mobility stats in your armor. Your goal here is to get your dodge back as fast as possible. In addition, pairing this with Wormhusk Crown, which will give you some health back on every dodge, will make a world of difference. If using Bottom Tree, I'd recommend using 6th Coyote, which will give you an extra dodge, which is an extra chance to get your smoke back for invisibility. Once again, Wormhusk Crown is also not a bad option because it will give you the extra health when you dodge. For Warlocks, Bottom Tree Voidwalker is probably the best option to go with. This will give you Devour from a melee or consuming your grenade, and can keep you healed during the boss encounters for a very long time as long as you keep killing adds, which there are plenty of. Well of Radiance also has some merit as well, because the Cube Room and the Phalanx boss, having the healing grenade and the well can pretty much make you invulnerable for the time it's active. Overall, the Devour perk on Voidwalker is likely going to be your saving grace. If you're using Well of Radiance, Phoenix Protocol or Transversive Steps exotics will probably be what you'd want to choose. For Voidwalker, Verity's Brow is a great exotic that helps you grenade recharge with energy weapon kills, and Transversive Steps again aren't bad because you will spend a lot of time running and moving around, and reloading can be especially frustrating. Having a healing rift on should go without saying. For Titan, Top Tree Sentinel with Bubble is probably going to be the safest option, using the Towering Barricade to defensively block enemies and only use the bubble in a panic unless you're using it for weapons of light buff during DPS on the Phalanx or the Kell Echo. You can pair it with Helm of Saint 14, which will blind enemies that enter, or the chest piece Armamentarium, which will give you a second grenade. To be honest, I did not play with Titan builds too much. A lot of this is based on community feedback. Other suggestions could be to try the Sword and Stronghold Arm Exotic build, which will give you healing properties from sword blocking, and pair this with Bubble as well. Once you've decided on which class you want to attempt, you need to start speccing out your armor and mod selection. In most cases, armor with mobility, recovery, and intellect are going to be the most beneficial. Unless you're running some special grenade build or a melee build where discipline and strength are important, mobility is going to greatly allow you to move around the rooms better, and especially on classes like Hunters, which will give you your dodge back faster. Recovery is kind of self-explanatory because you're going to be getting shot from all directions, and Intellect will help you get your super back faster. For mods, there is a large array of builds you can do. However, the mods I'm listed here are pretty universal as far as meta for this dungeon goes. You're going to want to masterwork all of your armor in order to get as many of them as quick as possible. So, let's go through the list. Mobility and recovery mods. These can go on anything and are a general mod, and I highly recommend stacking as many of them as you can. Heavy Ammo Finder and Special Ammo Finder are also going to be extremely necessary. Powerful Friends. This is a mod that you can get from the Season of Dawn if you already have it, and it gives you a lot of mobility. I think it's plus 20, and can put this on Season of Dawn armor slots. Fastball. I wouldn't sleep on this. It can increase your grenade throw distance. In a lot of situations, if you're playing safe, having the extra distance on your grenade may be extremely helpful, especially when you're using Oppressive Darkness and you're throwing it at a boss. Definitely want to have reserve mods for the weapons you're using. I ran grenade launchers, but if you're using swords or any other weapon type, having 1 or even 2 reserve mods for that weapon type will greatly increase your ammo capacity. Now we'll get into some of the specific mods you can get from different activities. I highly recommend getting Taken Barrier. This will provide a damage reduction anytime you're damaged by taken enemies, which is the entire dungeon. You can only get this from Last Wish, the raid. Hive Barrier you can also use here, but it's not as good as Taken Barrier. This will only provide damage reduction when damaged by the Hive-based taken enemies, like the Thrall and the Knights. However, the Scions and the Hobgoblins are not Hive-based, and you will not be able to get the effect from these. Hive Barrier drops from the Menagerie or the Crown of Sorrow raid. Concussive Dampener. This reduces AoE damage and is very helpful for the Knight's fire attack that they shoot at you almost constantly. The armaments mods, Taken armaments and Hive armaments, are also going to be very helpful, giving you heavy ammo anytime you get a grenade kill on that enemy type. Taken armaments will give you grenade kill on any taken enemy and can only be got in the Last Wish raid. Hive armaments will also work on Knights and Thrall and will provide heavy ammo every time you get a grenade kill on the Hive-based taken enemies. You can only get Hive armaments from the Menagerie, the Crown of Sorrow. Taken Spec. This is a weapon mod that increases damage on Taken by 10%, and I highly recommend you put this on all of your legendary weapons. You can get Taken Spec from the Last Wish raid. This will give you the extra damage you need on any of your weapons that are not exotic, which will help you take down the enemies faster. Special Ammo Scavenger is a great mod to have because it'll give you extra special ammo every time you pick up a green brick. And finally, the seasonal mod, Oppressive Darkness. This is on your seasonal artifact on the last column, and it turns your Void Grenade into a debuff grenade. So if you're running Hunter or Voidwalker or even Titan with a Void subclass, any of your grenades will debuff enemies and provide extra damage to them for a short time. Like I said, you're going to want to masterwork your armor and get as many of these mods on your setup as you can. Having these mods is going to greatly increase your chances of success. Now, I'm going to go through each encounter, strategies, and the weapon loadouts I'd recommend for the best success. Note that you're going to want to use weapons you are comfortable with, and as I mentioned earlier, you're going to want to have reserve mods for whatever weapon type you ultimately choose. Note that whatever weapon you do choose, like I said, Taken Spec on all legendaries will give you improved damage to Taken. For example, a Mountaintop with a Taken Spec mod can kill the Knights in 2 shots, but without the Taken Spec mod, it takes 3 shots. So, getting started. For the intro tunnel area, I'd recommend either Mountaintop or Witherhoard, an ad-clearing secondary with Dragonfly or maybe explosive rounds, and either a sword or Anarchy. I'm not going to cover too much of this encounter as it is very trivial. Be sure to clear the Thrall as much as possible. They can get a little annoying if left alone. And in the second room, getting dark motes can be easily done by using something like Damage Over Time with Anarchy or Witherhoard, because you can tag the knights and then hide in the dark and wait for them to fall. Note there is a way you can sword skip this intro encounter, and it's most easily achieved on a Titan or a Warlock. You can sword dash up the pipes on the left and then jump up top where the Phalanx boss is. Since I ran on a Hunter, I just completed the intro encounter normally. Note, be careful to avoid the Kell Echo as you're ascending the rocks after finishing this area. I have seen some videos where his teleport can kill you, so don't get too close to him. Once you've reached the Phalanx platform, you're going to want to prepare yourself for this first boss fight. For Hunter, I recommend again Mountaintop or Witherhoard, and an ad clearing secondary with Dragonfly or Explosive Payload. It will help clear the Scion groups a little faster. For Heavy, you'll want a sword with Relentless Strikes or Whirlwind Blade if you're on a Titan or a Warlock, like Falling Guillotine, and Anarchy or Witherhoard if you're on a Hunter. This is because to damage the boss himself as a Titan or a Warlock, you can just drop a well or a bubble right under him and sword him down. However, Hunter is better off damaging from range with something like Anarchy or Witherhoard that damages over time. When the encounter starts, and throughout the entire encounter, you want to keep to the outer circle of the map, utilizing the large structures for cover. You rarely want to go into the middle area unless you are cleansing a plate, grabbing motes, or for some reason need to be in the light or darkness to get a kill. In addition, while you're navigating the area, my best recommendation is to stay mobile at all times. The knights can flank you and the boss will wander towards you, and the Scions can overwhelm you. This goes for the rest of the dungeon encounters as well. Get used to always being on the move, doubling back if necessary, and never stay stationary for too long. In this encounter, you want to 100% prioritize the Scions when they spawn. They can replicate and are very easy to clear, so it's important you take care of them every wave. They respawn on a timer. The Knights spawn in groups of 3 and will not respawn until they are all dead. My recommendation is to immediately take out one of them and ignore the motes just to get him out of the way. This makes managing the area a little easier. Then, use the second and third knights to get the motes you need for each plate. Once you're ready to cleanse, utilize a healing grenade, overshield, or invisibility to go out and cleanse the plates. Note that you want to perform this ability before grabbing the last mote, as dodging to go invis, for example, while you're at max motes already will sacrifice your motes and you will lose them. Approach the highest up cleanses from jumping from behind the outer structures, and try to avoid cleansing the middle plates with Scions up, as you will likely die. Finally, during this entire encounter, and even so during the damage phase, do your best to just stay away from the boss. His Phalanx shield boop will knock you off the map and is an extremely annoying way to wipe. It has a pretty long range, so as long as you mobilize around the outside of the map, try to keep him away from you as much as possible. Be patient and rotate around the map more if he's getting too close, even if it means losing out on some motes. When DPS phase starts, choose your strategy, whether you're sorting him from up close or DPSing from afar. Be sure to throw your Oppressive Darkness grenade and debuff him if possible, and unload as much DPS as you can early. During DPS, 2 separate waves of orange bar goblins will spawn that will shield the Phalanx and make him immune. Your best bet is to focus on them once they start spawning. Sometimes you can get lucky and they won't actually immediately shield the boss, and sometimes you don't get as lucky and a group of 2 or 3 of them seems to be all working together to keep everyone immune. I typically will drop as much DPS as I can on the Phalanx until they spawn, then focus on them to clear them out, then do a little more damage to the boss before his shield comes back up. Depending on your DPS strategy, this encounter may take multiple phases, so be patient. Never lose sight of prioritizing clearing ads first over collecting motes, and eventually he'll fall. This encounter is a test of patience for sure. Never rush yourself, and you can get through it. When you enter the Wasteland area, My recommendation is either Mountaintop, Witherhoard, or a sniper rifle. Once again, an ad clearing weapon, and Xenophage or 21% Delirium, or maybe even a sword. There isn't much to go over here. Take your time as you approach each set of blights, and be sure to take out all 3 hobgoblins at each area from afar before worrying about anything else. Also watch out for the wandering minotaurs in the area, as they can come up behind you and ruin your day. Best to take them out if they get too close. Each set of blights will also have a specific kind of major protecting the blights, and they can be captains, phalanx, or even more hobgoblins. Watch out for them as well. Once you've unlocked Toland at all 3 locations, you'll be ready to move to the Hexahedron encounter. The Cube Room, as many call it, is all about maintaining control of adds at all times in the room. For weapons, I once again recommend Mountaintop, maybe Recluse, or another ad-clearing weapon with Dragonfly, and Xenophage. If you don't have these, Witherhoard is great, any other ad-clearing weapon, and maybe even an HMG, like Hammerhead or 21% Delirium. There are 2 different enemy spawns in this room that are completely separate from one another. First is the Acolytes. These spawn on a timer and can quickly summon their Acolyte Eyes to increase their presence in the room. Most of your time in each room will be to maintain control of these adds at all times. Do not let them overwhelm you, and you'll spend a good portion of your time worrying about them. I didn't time it personally, but it did seem that they either respawn faster in later rooms, or they just summon more Acolyte Eyes. Either way, spawn trap them, use heavy on them, and clear them out consistently. Second is the sniper hobgoblins up top and the knights. At the start of each room, there will be 2 sniper hobgoblins up, and killing one immediately spawns a knight down below. Killing the knight will immediately spawn a hobgoblin up top, and so on. My recommendation is to immediately take out both hobgoblins at the start of each room, as they are much more lethal than the knights. Then, while you are clearing all the adds, work on getting each knight's health relatively low. Then, once you have control of the adds for a second, finish off both knights together, quickly grabbing the 5 motes and cleansing the plate you need. If you're quick, you can get this done before the hobgoblins that respawn up top have time to do much damage. Once you've cleansed and the middle plate is glowing, note that you literally just have to touch it with your feet for a second to trigger the room to change. You don't actually need to stand on it while all of the adds shoot you. The best strategy is to just touch it and keep running towards cover from the adds. After a few second delay, the room will change and you can restart the next section. Clear out the hobgoblins quickly and then get back to work on the adds and repeat. When you get to the end with the 2 large Phalanx bosses, you can focus on staying a distance away and clearing one of them out first. Once it's dead, waves of Thrall will start to spawn. Save your debuffs for the second one to kill a little faster with the Thrall coming at you. Moving into the Ribbon Road area, you're going to want to equip a sniper rifle, a bow or a scout rifle, and another ranged heavy. I just use Xenophage. Take this area slow, and I obviously recommend not using a sparrow, just walking. Stop and clear out all the Vandal snipers along the way, and watch out for the phalanxes that can spawn on the floating plates that have the orange spheres. And when you get to the very end, clear out all of the adds at the bottom before jumping down into the teleporter. Finally, the final boss encounter, Kell Echo. Weapon-wise, once again, Mountaintop or Witherhoard, an ad-clearing weapon, and Anarchy. If you don't have Anarchy, you'll want another ranged heavy weapon like Xenophage here. Also note that there is some merit in using a bow here with explosive head, because it can be helpful clearing the scions, as well as killing the hobgoblins on the platforms in the DPS area. There is a growing popularity in using swords to damage the final boss, but this requires a lot of practice to achieve without the boss ground slamming you to your death. So unless you've practiced swording him on multiple runs, your best bet is to DPS him with Wither Horde, Anarchy, or Mountaintop. Like previous encounters, there are two sets of enemy spawns that are separate from one another. Scions will spawn on a timer in waves, and the two Knights will spawn individually. The Knights will not respawn until they are both dead. As a rule, always clear out Scions when they spawn. They replicate quickly and can be an absolute menace. Do not underestimate them and ignore them, and they'll overwhelm you. Secondly, and very similarly from the previous two encounters, you'll want to stay moving the entire time, especially at the start of each room when there is a boss in all three corners. Try to stay out of the middle as well, as this just increases the number of angles that adds can overwhelm you from. Do your best to cleanse one of the three corners relatively quickly, using heavy if necessary on the ogre. This will give you a corner that has some reprieve if things get hairy. Be patient, take your time, and never rush a cleanse with Scions up or if you are not full health. It is okay in some instances to sacrifice motes in order to stay alive rather than to push it. When you enter the DPS area, your 100% focus needs to be on the hobgoblins. Honestly, DPSing the boss is the least of your concerns. Remember that he stays at his initial plate and at the final location the longest, so those are the best times to damage him heavily. The rest of the time, you will be jumping from platform to platform, killing hobgoblins, and maybe tagging the boss with a Wither Horde or an Anarchy along the way. There will be two hobgoblins at the end, all the way on the steps you'll want to get rid of as well as you get close. Once they are all down, you can focus on the boss again until he disappears. Remember to not let your dark entropy stack too high, and definitely use the cover on some of the plates to block the blights from the boss and the hobgoblin shots. You should definitely practice running DPS phase a handful of times so you can master the path that you want to take. The boss always teleports to the same spots, and the hobgoblins always spawn in the same spots. So this way, you can plot out exactly how to approach an entire DPS cycle, and then just repeat it the same way every single time. Once he is gone, note that you do not have to take the pink teleporter back to the moat room right away. At a minimum, you should wait for your grenade and class ability to be back up, and if you want to be really patient, you can even wait for your super to come back here. Then, just rinse and repeat. This fight is a marathon, as doing it solo will likely take you many DPS phases. Stay patient, try to stay calm, and eventually you can finish off the fight. You get the Sparrow from finishing the dungeon flawlessly, and this can be achieved with a group. The Ghost Shell from finishing the dungeon solo, which has to be done from start to finish. And the Emblem for finishing it solo flawlessly from start to finish. If you have any questions, drop me a message and I can help out. Best of luck in accomplishing this task, Guardians. It may take you a handful of tries, a lot of practice, and a lot of failures, but never give up. You'll eventually get it. Until next time.